Good morning everybody, welcome to story time. I hope you are well and had a good week so far. I can't believe that it's already Thursday, it's gone so quickly. And welcome to the nerd room. This is my husband Jim's games room. You can see behind me lots of games, lots of comics. Awesome, this is to make me look cool, but I'm not really. Okay, are you ready? I've got some really lovely stories to share with you today. I've got a couple of stories that people have asked for. Oh, but before I begin, Elspeth asked me to read The Mousehole Cat, and I love that story. It's beautiful, but it's quite long, so I did read it last night and I made a video of it in 2 parts, and I put it up on our brand new shiny new YouTube channel, which is just called Chicken and Frog, so we're nice and easy to find. And what we'll do is at the end of each session we'll upload the video from the day and put it onto YouTube, so that if we read any stories that you've really enjoyed that you want to go and watch again, then you can watch them again, and you can, I don't know how it works, but you can probably fast forward the bits that you didn't like. I don't know, I'm not very good with technology. I'm just amazed it's working at all, to be honest. So the first story that I'm going to read today is quite an old one, and it is especially for Tilly. Whenever Tilly and her mummy and her big sister Poppy come into the shop, she goes off and she finds this book, There's No Such Thing as a Dragon, by Jack Kent, and she sits on the sofa and has a little bit of a read. It's not in print anymore, which is a real shame because it is fantastic. And this is how old I am and my children are. I remember this being read on the tweenies, probably about at least 15 years ago, I guess. So it's by Jack Kent and it was published by Happy Cat Publications, and it's just adorable. So there, I know that for some of you this is backwards and I can never remember which ones it is, but there's the dragon. Let's see what happens. Billy Bixby was rather surprised when he woke up one morning and found a dragon in his room. It was a small dragon, about the size of a kitten. The dragon wagged its tail happily when Billy patted its head. Billy went downstairs to tell his mother. "There's no such thing as a dragon," said Billy's mother, and she said it as if she meant it. Billy went back to his room and began to get dressed. The dragon came close to Billy and wagged its tail. But Billy didn't pat it. If there's no such thing as something, it seems silly to pat it on the head. Billy washed his face and his hands and went down to breakfast. The dragon went too. It was bigger now, almost the size of a dog. Billy sat at the table. The dragon sat down on the table. This sort of thing was not usually permitted, but there wasn't much Billy's mother could do about it. She had already said there was no such thing as a dragon, and if there's no such thing, you can't tell it to get down off the table. Mother made some pancakes for Billy, but the dragon ate them all. Mother made some more, but the dragon ate those too. Poor Billy. Mother kept making pancakes until she ran out of batter. Billy only got one of them, but he said that's all he really wanted anyway. Billy went upstairs to brush his teeth. Mother started clearing the table. The dragon, who was quite as big as Mother by this time, made himself comfortable on the hall rug and went to sleep. By the time Billy came back downstairs, the dragon had grown so much he filled the hall. It's wonky, sorry. There you go. Billy had to go around by way of the living room to get to where his mother was. "I didn't know dragons grew so fast," said Billy. "There's no such thing as a dragon," said Mother firmly. Cleaning the downstairs took Mother all morning, what with the dragon in the way and having to climb in and out of windows to get from room to room. By midday, the dragon filled the house. Its head hung out of the front door, its tail hung out of the back door, and there wasn't a room in the house that didn't have some part of a dragon in it. When the dragon awoke from his nap, he was hungry. A bakery van went by. The smell of fresh bread was more than the dragon could resist. The dragon ran down the street after the bakery van. The house went too, of course, like the shell on a snail. The postman was just coming up the path with some post for the Bixbys when their house rushed past him and headed down the street. He chased the Bixbys' house for a few blocks, but he couldn't reach it. When Mr. Bixby came home for lunch, the first thing he noticed was that the house was gone. Luckily, one of the neighbours was able to tell him which way it went. Mr. Bixby got in his car and went looking for his house. He studied all the houses as he drove along. Finally, he saw one that looked familiar. Billy and Mrs. Bixby were waving from an upstairs window. Mr. Bixby climbed over the dragon's head and onto the porch roof and through the upstairs window. "How did this happen?" asked Mr. Bixby. "It was a dragon," said Billy. "There's no such thing," Mother started to say. "There is a dragon," Billy insisted. "A very big dragon." And Billy patted the dragon on the head. The dragon wagged its tail happily. Then, even faster than it had grown, the dragon started getting smaller. Soon, it was kitten size again. "I don't mind dragons this side," said Mother. "Why did it have to grow so big?" "I'm not sure," said Billy, "but I think it just wanted to be noticed." There they are. Lovely story. I do love that story. Okay, this one is quite new. Well, old and new at the same time. So the stories are old because they're Aesop's fables. But this version is a new version. They're retold by Ellie Willard, who is awesome, and they're illustrated by the equally awesome Marta Altez. There it is, absolutely beautiful. They've also done Just So stories too, which you can see on the back, very little, and it's published by Macmillan. It's absolutely beautiful. So I'm going to share with you Two Travellers and the Bear. There they are. There once were two travellers, one of them tall, the other one tinsily winsily small, who strolled through the woods on a sunshiny day, and they sang to themselves as they marched on their way. "We're friends forever, friends for life, friends through trouble and friends through strife. It's you for me and it's me for you, and we'll always face danger together. Ooh! For what was that thudding and thumping and that crashing? Why were the branches all snapping and smashing?" "Look!" whimpered Small. "Can you see? Over there! It's hairy, it's scary. Oh, yikes! Oh, it's a bear!" "Ah!" shouted Tall, and as quick as he could, he went shakily shimmering straight up a tree. "Quick!" shouted Small. "Can you help me to climb? I can't reach the branch and there isn't much time. We always face danger together, we two. It's you for me and it's me for you." "But, sorry," cried Tall. "You will have to be brave. I can't help you up. I've my own skin to save." Poor Small gave a shivery shud of dread. As she lay on the ground, she tried to play dead. The bear padded nearer on great pounding paws. It sniffed at Small's ears. It opened its jaws. Then it uttered a noise of the haughtiest sort, half like a snicker and half like a snort, before turning right round and galumphing away. And Tall called to Small, "Tell me, what did he say?" "It said," replied Small, "that whatever I do, I should never hang out with big cowards like you. For a friend who is true is a friend for life, a friend through trouble, a friend through strife. You're not a friend, as that bear has just shown." Then she happily went on her way, all alone. Good story, hey? Okay, this one's a little bit longer. So I love this story. We are super lucky in the bookshop because we quite often get visited by authors and illustrators, and they share their stories with us. And Susie Violet came in and shared this story with us, I don't know, quite a long time ago now actually. It's called The Little Cockroach. It's illustrated by Alex Patrick, and it's been published by Twinkie and Hooby. What a brilliant publishing name is that? And it's all about this sweet little cockroach that goes on his travels. So I know that we can't go on our travels at the moment, but we can imagine, we can think about where he's gone on his. Okay? Pedro, the little cockroach, was very bored one day. "I'm tired of this place," Pedro said to his best friend, as he looked across the sand dunes in sunny Angel Bay. "There must be more than sun and sand to make this boredom end." There he is. He said, "I know, Enrique, we should go and have some fun." They packed some shoes and 2 canoes, and so their adventures begun. They left the bay to find a way. The road was unfriendly and scary. Watching out for predators, they needed to be wary. Prowling in the shadows was a gecko's silhouette. Pedro and Enrico upped their pace. "We need to lose this threat." "Yippee! We lost it," Pedro said. They danced around with glee. Despite the close encounter, they had never felt so free. "Look, an airport!" Enrico cried, and they ran towards the lights. "Jump on this case," Pedro said, as they zoomed to catch a flight. Through the airport they whizzed. "Hang on, Enrico, hold tight!" The roaches clasped with all their strength, with the cargo hold in sight. I don't know if you can see them. Oh, I'm so bad at doing this. Can you see them there? They're hanging on tight to a suitcase. I'm not sure how I feel about cockroaches on suitcases, but I think these are friendly, clean ones, so it's okay. Arriba! Away they flew, high up into the sky. The little bugs were on their way, waving their home goodbye. They arrived in a new land of spaghetti and old buildings. "We made it, Pedro, we really did. Here's to new beginnings." There they are. "Where are we?" Enrico said. I'm not sure," Pedro replied. "Grab a camera, find your map, and let's follow that tour guide." "Let's go! Andiamo!" is what the locals say. They walked up a wonky tower with Pedro leading the way. They scuttled on through the crowds. "Come over here," Pedro said. "Oh no, Enrico, watch out!" as ice cream plopped on his head. Sweet, sticky and smooth, licking up the goo, the ice cream melted with plenty for 2. Oh, they're having a real feast, look. They came across a kitchen, and disguised as pepperoni, they were picked up by the chef and plonked into a calzone. Oh no! Inside a pizza oven they sat. It was toasty and yummy. This was the best place to be, and perfect for their tummies. Unaware of the outside world, the bugs tucked in with delight. A knife came tearing through. Their delight turned into fright. Screams echoed through the air with people in a panic. Pedro yelled, "We need to leave! This atmosphere's too manic!" After all the exploring, they decided to sleep. All their whizzing and whooshing had quite worn out their feet. They scurried into a grand hotel. "Get in here," Pedro said. The little bugs found a case to make the perfect bed. They talked about the gecko and flying in the sky. Their heads buzzing with all they'd done, they started to close their eyes. Pedro started snoring. Enrico snuggled in tight. Tomorrow would be another adventure, but for now, they said, night-night. And here are some photographs of all their trips. They went on a roach trip. Some really cool places. That's that one. Next one. Okay, so I've got another one that I've been asked to read. This is for Poppy, and she asked me to read Gorilla by the very amazing Anthony Brown. It's published by Walker Books. As you can probably see from this, I've had it for a long time, this copy, and it is very well loved. Don't tell Jim, but I would probably leave Jim for Anthony Brown, just so that he could draw for me and things, that's all. I just think he's amazing. So this book is called Gorilla. Hannah loved gorillas. She read books about gorillas, she watched gorillas on television, and she drew pictures of gorillas, but she had never seen a real gorilla. Her father didn't have time to take her to see one at the zoo. He didn't have time for anything. He went to work every day before Hannah went to school, and in the evening he worked at home. When Hannah asked him a question, he would say, "Not now, I'm busy. Maybe tomorrow." But the next day he was always too busy. "Not now, maybe at the weekend," he would say. But at the weekend he was always too tired. They never did anything together. The night before her birthday, Hannah went to bed tingling with excitement. She had asked her father for a gorilla. In the middle of the night, Hannah woke up and saw a very small parcel at the foot of her bed. It was a gorilla, but it was just a toy. Hannah threw the gorilla into the corner with her other toys and went back to sleep. In the night, something amazing happened. Hannah was frightened. "Don't be frightened, Hannah," said the gorilla. "I won't hurt you. I just wondered if you'd like to go to the zoo." The gorilla had such a nice smile that Hannah wasn't afraid. "Oh, I'd love to," she said. They both crept downstairs, and Hannah put on her coat. The gorilla put on her father's hat and coat. "A perfect fit," he whispered. They opened the front door and went outside. "Come on then, Hannah," said the gorilla, and he gently lifted her up. They were off, swinging through the trees towards the zoo. When they arrived at the zoo, it was closed, and there was a high wall all around. "Never mind," said the gorilla. "Up and over." They went straight to the primates. Hannah was thrilled. So many gorillas. I'm sorry, it's very wonky. The gorilla took Hannah to see the orangutan and a chimpanzee. She thought they were beautiful, but sad. "Would you like to go now? What would you like to do now?" the gorilla said. "I'd love to go to the cinema," said Hannah. So they did. Afterwards they walked down the street together. "Oh, that was wonderful," said Hannah, "but I'm hungry now." "Okay," said the gorilla, "we'll eat." Yum, look at that feast. Looks good. "Time for home?" asked the gorilla. Hannah nodded, a bit sleepily. They danced on the lawn. Hannah had never been so happy. "You'd better go in now, Hannah," said the gorilla. "See you tomorrow." "Really?" asked Hannah. The gorilla nodded and smiled. The next morning Hannah woke up and saw the toy gorilla. She smiled. Hannah rushed downstairs to tell her father what had happened. "Happy birthday, love," he said. "Do you want to go to the zoo?" Hannah looked at him. She was very happy. Beautiful story. Okay, ready for another one? So this is called Patin's Pumpkin. It is an Indian flood story by Chitra Sounder. We've been super lucky because we've done lots of school events with Chitra, and she is an amazing natural storyteller. She's just fantastic. So if you ever get the chance to meet Chitra, I highly recommend it. This has been illustrated by Franny Lesac, and it is published by Otter Barry Books. As well, you can see how much I love this book because it is very battered. Sorry, Chitra. It's because I read it a lot. The illustration's absolutely beautiful. Look at all these pumpkins. Now, talking of pumpkins, it's got nothing to do with this book, but if you want a little challenge over the next few days, Laura Ellen Anderson, who is an author and an illustrator, she writes the Amelia Fang books, and she writes loads of stuff for Phoenix Comics as well. She does Evil Emperor Penguin. Has set a challenge for people to create a pumpkin of their very own and send a photograph into her over Instagram or Twitter. You can find her really easily under Little Illustrator, and she's adding her all the pumpkins that you send in to a ginormous pumpkin patch, and it's starting to look really cool. So if you fancy drawing a pumpkin for Laura, then send it in. Okay, let's find out what happens in this story. Once upon a time, there was a man called Patan. He lived with his wife Kani on the banks of a mighty river that galloped down the Sahyadri mountains. They tended the goats, fed the bulls, and rode with the elephants that roamed their lands. Patan grew pepper, rice, nutmeg, and bananas. He shared his food with everyone, the animals, the birds, and the insects. One day, Patan found an ailing plant in the valley. It had beautiful yellow flowers. I'll plant it by my hut and look after it, he thought. The plant liked its new home. Its yellow flowers smiled at the sun. Look, Patan called one day, a pumpkin has started to grow. The pumpkin grew a little every day. The goats can't reach it now, said Kani. The pumpkin had grown taller than the fence. It was fatter than the pigs. And still it grew bigger and bigger and bigger. Soon it will be as tall as the mountain, said Patan. The next day, dark clouds gathered. Rain crashed across the rocks in a fury. Patan was afraid that the floods would wash away his hut. We should leave the mountains tomorrow, he said. We should take all the animals, birds, beetles and bugs with us, and a sapling of every plant and seed of every grain. But how were they going to take all the creatures with them? Patan couldn't sleep that night when the pumpkin glowed like fire under a burst of lightning. He had an idea. In the morning, Patan reached for his axe. It's time to harvest the pumpkin, he said. Battling the lashing rain, Patan climbed the mountain. The birds and animals followed him. Patan jumped on top of the pumpkin. Cutting a big hole, he dived into its orange flesh. The birds called out in fear. The goats bleated. The bison snorted. See his feet? Whoop. Patan dug into the pumpkin, hollowing out its insides. Help me, he called. The goats, the bison and the birds ferried out the pumpkin flesh as fast as they could. The wind blew hard, rocking the pumpkin from side to side, but Patan did not give up. He dug and dug until the pumpkin was hollow. At last it was big enough for everyone. Down in the valley, Kani filled sacks with grain, seeds and herbs. Patan loaded them onto the goats. Elephants and bulls brought them up the mountainside. Hurry, climb in, Patan cried. The dark evening skies cradled the mountain in darkness. We must leave before nightfall, said Patan, cutting the prickly stem from the plant. Now the pumpkin was free. It rolled down the mountain and bounced into the river. The crested waters of the river carried the pumpkin along. Many a night and day must have passed. No one counted. It rained and rained and rained. Kani sang a lullaby to soothe the baby animals and birds. While the gods of rain and thunder send us a storm, here inside the pumpkin we are safe and warm. One day we will return to our mountain peak, but in this great darkness, light is what we seek. And then, one day, the pumpkin bumped against something and stopped. Patan climbed out into a bright and sunny day. "Oh, we've reached the plains," he cried joyfully. Canny and all the creatures hurried out. The troubles of the rain were finally over. "The pumpkin has saved us," said Canny. The animals and birds basked in the sunshine. The next morning, Patan gathered everyone together. "It's time to return home," he said. Back in the valley, they built a new house by the river. "I'm forever grateful to the pumpkin," Patan said, as he planted the single pumpkin seed he had saved. Patan and Canny had many children, and they all made their homes in the foothills of the Sahyadri Mountains. Even today, Patan's descendants live in this valley, looking after their animals and growing pumpkins. They remember Patan and Canny with reverence and love. All the pumpkins. So maybe fancy pumpkin soup now. Okay, we've got time for a couple more. So this book is called Midnight Feast. It is a poetry anthology. It is published by Bloomsbury, and it's been collated by A.F. Harold, who is a brilliant poet and author. He's just an all-round fab person, really. And it's illustrated by the very talented Katie Riddell. So it's got a bit of a theme going on of food. So if you haven't noticed already, I'm quite a fan of food. I'm a greedy person. I like my food. And if I can't eat food, then I like having a bit of a read about it instead. So this poem is called Has Anyone Seen Harriet? And it is by Stephen Butler. It's a bit of a strange one, but it's very funny. Harriet stole Bertie's sweets. She gobbled down his dinner, snatched away his tea-time snacks, and laughed as he got thinner. She gnawed the meats and gulped the puds, that chunksome little beast, while Bertie's stomach grumbled as he longed to join the feast. Poor Bertie didn't stand a chance with Harriet nearby. That piggy brute swiped all the fruit, the cheese and cake and pie. Then, one dreadful morning, she scoffed the jam and bread. So, instead of eating breakfast, Bert ate Harriet instead. It's a very silly one, but it is funny. I love it. Okay, I'll read you another one from here because we've got time. This one is pretty crazy. This is by Jude Simpson, and it is called Crisps with Custard. Daddy likes a casserole. Mum prefers a roast. Jenny likes rice pudding, but only on toast. Bill won't eat tomatoes or turnips or swede, but loves a bowl of cornflakes if it's topped with lots of cheese. Jenny quite likes pasta, but only if it's tube-shaped. Bill refuses bacon, unless it's on a blue plate. Daddy likes a lemon cake, especially if it's fried, and loves potato skin, but not the potato inside. Mum eats mash with marmalade. Jen likes chocolate ham. Dad pours gravy on ice cream, then spreads his beef with jam. Mum says, "Eat your fruit up, Bill." But Bill says, "Don't you see? I simply won't eat anything that once grew on a tree." It's such a fussy family that cooking is a feat. There's really hardly anything that all of them will eat. So every night they gobble up the only thing that works, a plate of crisps with custard, then radish for dessert. Would you eat that? I'm not sure that I would. Oh, I think we've got time for one more crazy poem. Let's see. Okay, this one is by A.F. Harold, and it is called The Perils of Breakfast. Some of you, if you've been lucky enough to meet Ashley either at our shop or somewhere else, may have heard him perform this poem before. So I know that I can't do it the justice that he does it because he's brilliant, but we'll have a go. So, The Perils of Breakfast. Watch out for bears in your cornflakes. They're dangerous. They have big claws. They are always hungry at breakfast time, doubly so. If you lift a spoonful of cornflakes to your mouth and it's got a bear hiding in it, well, you'll be in trouble, won't you? Eaten up just like that. Gobble, gobble, crunch. Fortunately, bears are larger than cornflakes and so you can usually spot a bit of fur poking round the side. If you do, put your spoon down and choose something else instead. But watch out for crocodiles in your porridge. Watch out for tigers under your toast. So next time you have breakfast, be careful. That's all I can say. Okay, look at that. Perfect timing. So as I've said before, if you want a particular story read, and I've got it either here or at the shop, then I'm very, very happy to read it for you. We're going to save the video from today and pop it up on our YouTube channel. So if you really enjoyed a particular story or poem, you can go and revisit it again later. Have a lovely day, people. Look after yourselves. Be kind and beautiful to everyone, as I know you will. And enjoy reading on your lovely extended time off, kids. See you soon. Now I've got to remember what to do. Oop. Get a close-up of my thumb.